To discuss the real issues affecting the Tasman nations, this is Trad Tasman Talk, jointly produced by the Unshackled.net and rightminds.nz. Now, here's Tim Wilms in Australia and Dieuwe de Boer in New Zealand.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of Trad Tasman Talk. It's Tim Wilms here in Melbourne, where it is 7:15 p.m.
And this is Dieuwe de Boer here in Auckland, where it is 9:15 p.m. And it's good to see everybody back for another show. And great to see the familiar names and faces in the chat, as always.
So, as always, we're both on the Unshackled and Right Minds YouTube channels, and also I'm putting in the Entropy link into both chats. Entropy is the enhanced YouTube software where you can send super chats and send through questions, because we always like to have a bit of Q&A towards the end of the show.
And I see my chat is already upset at my typing during the introduction.
Yes, your keyboard is so loud.
I only use mechanical keyboards, and I had forgotten to stop typing during the intro. So there you go. Just the old school. That's what I am, old school.
Now we'll start the show. Well, I've got a few updates from the previous Unshackled production show that I did on Sunday evening, Brawl on the Brain with Jared Seaby. So we spoke about there how last Friday, Neil Erickson, Australian Patriot activist, had been convicted of disturbing religious worship back in April 2019, where about 10 minutes before prayers were about to start at Federation Square Islamic prayers, he arrived with a megaphone shouting repeatedly, Muhammad was a false prophet. The whole thing went for about 30 seconds until he was ushered away by Victoria Police and then driven across town for disturbing religious worship. So they ended up charging him with disturbing religious worship. Justice is slow in Victoria, so he was convicted on Friday. It was the whole trial was on the WebEx virtual court system, but he was asked to go to the Melbourne Magistrates Court in person today for sentencing. So he suspected that he might be sentenced to imprisonment, because the maximum for this offence is 3 months imprisonment. He's not going to be sent to prison, but he's going to be put on what is termed a strong corrections order, which will be issued on May the 11th, which could possibly involve him not being able to post to social media for a year, not allowed to associate with members of the United Patriots Front, which actually doesn't exist anymore, and the National Socialist Network. He's not a member of that organization either. And also he might have to attend de-radicalization sessions, or go through a de-radicalization program to teach him what he did was wrong. And what came to mind was, is this going to be a Clockwork Erickson, where they're going to strap him down to in a seat and make him watch pro Islam films with the eye drops, if you've seen that movie. And he's also, I should say, still got another disturbing religious worship trial for disrupting a gay church service in May 2019. So they may have to have a anti-homophobia de-radicalization program as well.
Yes, he may be strangely conflicted by the time that he is finished with both de-radicalization programs, or if he's becoming more accepting of Islam and becoming more tolerant of gays. He may struggle to reconcile his newfound approved ideas.
Well, he has said, or just in the Unshackled Telegram discussion, that at the moment Sharia law is preferable in Victoria to the current degenerate state.
I was actually watching a video from Lauren Chen today, and she had apparently gotten herself into hot water as well for saying that Islam was right about the West. So apparently that was not acceptable to the progressives to say that Islam was right about the West.
Now, over in New Zealand, thankfully, no more lockdowns, restrictions for you. But there is a bit more news on the vaccine front.
A little bit. We are making slow progress. There are rumors in the background of frontline workers who are refusing or declining the vaccine being moved on. So we're essentially going to have at least a form of compulsory vaccination for the frontline workers, as they are.
Oh, it's still voluntary. You just lose your job.
You just lose your job if you say no. So that's all fine. This is fine. No problem. This is totally not going to end badly. And we're finally getting our first celebrities to take the vaccine tomorrow. Or I should say the mRNA injectable, since as of a month ago, it didn't. The Pfizer vaccine, which didn't meet the definition of a vaccine until about 35 days ago. So Chris Hipkins and Aisha Verrall. So Chris Hipkins is the health minister. Aisha is not the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, but the associate health minister.
Is she named after her?
Yes, she does come from the Maldives, which has compulsory Sunni Islam as its state religion. So I'm assuming she has some kind of background with Islam, even if not, in any real manner here in New Zealand. But at least certainly I would assume that she was named after the wife of Prophet Muhammad. And anyway, they're both going to, this is not related to the vaccine. I'm they're both going to receive the vaccine tomorrow. And apparently they tried to get the opposition the shadow health minister or health spokesman, Shane Retty, who's also the deputy leader of the National Party. He was invited to the party as well, but he declined, saying that he was not going to skip the queue. So he's going to be waiting until at least July at the earliest, as I'm predicting already. It's going to be much beyond July before we get any kind of general access. But he has obviously upset the I guess the media and Twitter mob and so on are upset that he won't do a celebrity vaccination. So, and obviously everybody wants to know where Jacinda is, and Jacinda is still nowhere to be seen. Although I think she does do some friendly media appearances every now and then, but she hasn't really been at the forefront of this, and we still have no idea when she is going to be getting her jab. So, but she has sent two of her lackeys to go and get the jab.
Sounds like she's fallen down the stairs, like our premier, who is now 16 days without posting to his social media. So that's sent the conspiracy theorists into a frenzy.
Jacinda has been posting to her social media. This is so she did post some stories about children receiving letters from her, and from making masks, and from coming across people on planes wearing masks with her face on them. So she's been posting stuff like that to her social media.
So is she? I assume she's making the masks out of her undies, because when she has worn masks, they look like her undies.
That's right. I should have. If I had thought about this earlier, I would have got you to dig up that old photo that you like so much. You probably keep it tucked away somewhere to look at every now and then.
Yeah, she does look better with the mask on.
But this is not about her wearing masks. This is just about the other people wearing masks now.
Well, here in Victoria, we've been unmasked since 6 p.m. on Friday. It finally happened. So as long as you don't use public transport or go to an aged care facility or hospital, you can go about your normal business
anyway.
Without a mask. And going to the shops, 99% of Victorian shoppers now aren't wearing the masks, which basically means that they couldn't wait to rip them off.
It's something I've noticed in New Zealand too. We only have them on public transport now, and you can tell when it's the people standing in line for public transport wearing their masks. They stick out like a sore thumb. Kind of a humiliation ritual, where you're waiting at the bus stop and you come past on your bike. You got the traffic on the one side, all these people stuck in traffic, not going anywhere. You're running down the middle there, and then on the other side, you've got the people waiting for their buses with their masks on. It's quite an enjoyable sight that I get to see every morning on my way to work now.
The 1% who are still wearing them in the shops, half of them haven't got the memo. And well, the other half, you just sort of think, well, what's wrong with you? Are you that paranoid? They just look like weirdos now.
And that's it. And it will be interesting to see what happens in the rest of the world, especially places that have had, incredibly long mask mandates. But Victoria probably has had one of the longest. So to see
since
that they
July
just
last
vanish,
year.
Yeah, to see that they just vanish completely after a year is clear that people do hate them, but they will only remove them once it has been approved.
Yes. Yes,
I'm
which
pretty
shows
sure,
that
Colin, we're going back to the nightly news there. No, that's not de-radicalization treatment. That's an enhanced interrogation technique.
Well, speaking of the nightly news, a concern of the viewers of Melbourne has been the health of veteran Nine newsreader Peter Hitchener, who looked like he was about to have an on-air stroke on Monday's news bulletin because he had trouble reading the auto cue. He was replaced mid-bulletin by a young newsreader we'd never heard of. We were told that he was feeling fine and that he'd be back tomorrow night. He's not back. He's taking another night off. We were told that he just had a headache. Now, he's 75 years old. I have a suspicion maybe he took the vaccine and is having side effects.
We could speculate. We could certainly speculate. Obviously, there have been a number of high-profile side effects, especially in Australia, and I'm wondering how this is going to go in New Zealand. New Zealand's a much smaller country too. Even if the number of side effects is small, simply due to the insignificant effect that COVID has had in New Zealand. Again, most of our deaths, over half of them, were in a dementia ward. So any kind of side effects are going to get a massive amount of publicity. It was obviously difficult to speculate if you don't know, though.
Well, I have a personal story about the vaccine to update. I said this on Brawl in the Brain Sunday that one of the people that I know had the vaccine. I met them on Sunday and they said they felt fine. Just ran into them around town. Now I've heard that they've fallen sick.
Oh, well, I do hope they get better soon.
Yes. Hopefully I see them again.
Yes, certainly. And I may have mentioned this in last week's episode too, but I've got family members who have had COVID in the Netherlands. I've got cousins who apparently have had it twice, multiple times, and every time they've been less sick than when I had the flu. And I remember probably about a year ago we were talking about how bad the flu was, because I do remember we both had very, very bad case of the flu. I've had family members a little bit younger than me have COVID and be much less sick than when I actually had influenza. So, again, I don't think that they're particularly worried about the vaccine either. If you can get COVID again and then you get the vaccine, then you get sick, the headlines are you're going to need to get a jab every year, maybe more often, maybe every 6 months, every 3 months. All of this stuff is swirling around the edges. And we shall see what happens, because they still are not guaranteeing immunity from the vaccine either. So whatever.
Well,
Again, I don't care. I'm not, like I've said, I'm not taking it. I don't care. But it's just it's going to be interesting to see where they go with this, and we'll have to keep. We will obviously be along for the ride.
Well, in Australia, there's a new virus circulating called RSV, and it's actually caused by lockdowns and social distancing because after a year of it, people's immune systems are much weaker, and it's affecting infants, young children, and the elderly. The rates have increased dramatically just early this year, and obviously in Victoria everyone's been muzzled, which can't help the immune system either. So it looks like this winter around Australia, especially in Victoria, people's weak immune systems will make them susceptible to viruses such as RSV, and the only cure to me is more socialization, getting maybe spending some time in nature, and what's the old thing for young children to their immune system to improve? Maybe some dirt around the face.
Exactly. And I've got a question here from Dr. Foster asking how many people who allegedly had the Wu flu a second time were hospitalized. I should say they tested positive because
well, it could have been a case of viral shedding, because the PCR test catch up that.
Yeah, but that's the case. Like I said, I have personally had family members who have tested positive, and like I said, they've not really been sick. So very good.
On the topic of COVID, due to two separate clusters escaping the Princess Alexandria Hospital in Brisbane, the city,
infinite lockdowns, endless rolling lockdowns forever.
Is in a 3-day lockdown which started 5 p.m. yesterday. Now, they had a doctor from the Princess Alexandria Hospital who tested positive on the 12th of March. They didn't find any other cases linked to that, so they thought, there's no need to worry, until a tradie tested positive last Friday, which would have been they tested positive on the 26th, and it was announced on Friday the 20. So it's the 30th today. If I go to Friday the 26th. That's when they're announced. And so Annastacia Palaszczuk, the Premier, said there's no need to panic. They found
it's no need to panic. Just stay in your homes. Don't go anywhere. We'll find you if you go outside, and stay calm.
Right. Then they found another case the next day on the Saturday, a friend of the tradie, and then it broke Saturday night that this second person from the cluster, the emerging cluster, had a house party while they were waiting for their test results, which they tested negative, a house party with 25 people. It turned out Sunday that was fake news. They lived with 5 other people, and they did isolate. There was no apparent breach of isolation rules, so that was fake news. And they said on Sunday, good news, we found the missing link, because we found this other person who, they're not infectious now, but it's a historical case. They were infectious recently, and they're connected to the tradie and the doctor at the hospital. So we found the missing link in the chain. Yeah. And so I was like, good news on the Sunday.
Yeah. And very similar to New Zealand's double whammy lockdown. So Auckland specifically, Auckland's double whammy lockdown, where we yo-yoed in and out within the space of a few days, because they had a similar missing link case they couldn't figure out. But then they kept everybody locked down just for good measure, just to make sure that we all learned our lesson.
But then on Monday, they found 4 new cases, and so they shat the bed and called a 3-day snap lockdown for 5 p.m. Queensland time that day, which of course panic buying ensued. Mask wearing was made compulsory throughout the state, because one of the positive cases went to Gladstone. In the rest of Queensland outside of Brisbane, it's only inside, so it's not outside as well. Thank goodness. But Paul Murray on Sky News, he's having his Our Town in Cairns this week, which is in far north Queensland. And so I had to laugh when I flicked over to it last night to see his boomer audience in masks because of the mask mandate that had come in at 5 p.m. that day. Yeah, and there was also a nurse from the of those 4 cases on Monday. There was a nurse who was at the Princess Alexandria Hospital who, with another friend, had been to Byron Bay for a hens night, and from that hens night, it looks to be a large exposure site because there was a tradie from the Gold Coast there who was the entertainment for the night at the hens night. He's a tradie who works part-time in the male entertainment industry, shall I call it, and has since tested positive. So I don't think in his job he was wearing much PPE there, so there was obviously So yes, that has led to the Gold Coast, Gladstone, and Byron Bay being a area of concern. Greater Brisbane is now a national hotspot from all states and territories now.
It sounds like a familiar story time and time again over the past year.
And it turns out that this nurse from the Princess Alexandria Hospital, she got it from another COVID patient. So it's 2 separate clusters from the same hospital. So it's going into lockdown now, the Princess Alexandria Hospital, because it sounds like it sounds like it's as COVID infested as the Holiday Inn at Melbourne Airport, which of course led to our 5-day snap lockdown.
I remember reading some analysis that I believe was from Scotland, and they had the overwhelming majority, somewhere between 2/3 and 90% probably around about 70-80% of COVID cases had come from hospitals. So all of the lockdowns, all of the social distancing, the end result being, of course, that the hospitals are where people got sick. The avenue of community infection was through hospitals.
Mel McPhee, she is a Brisbane resident, and she's got a large family, so the lockdown is especially hard on her. So hang in there, Melissa. We're all feeling for you. And yes, with the fact that they announced 6 more cases today, or active cases, they picked up 2 more that are new, but they're no longer infectious. So 8 new local cases. So it's looking, people are fearing that the lockdown will be extended. It turned out that these two healthcare workers at the Princess Alexandria Hospital were part of the 11% of Queensland frontline workers who weren't vaccinated. And New South Wales Premier Gladstone Ardern has said we should be prepared for cases to emerge in our state because of the exposure site at Byron Bay. But for a lot of people in Australia might know, but many in New Zealand might not know, that Byron Bay has a large, alternate lifestyle community where they're not big fans of vaccinations. So I doubt they'll be big fans of getting COVID swabs. So it could be spreading throughout Byron Bay, and just they don't get tested there.
Certainly, we shall we shall see. But yeah, people are going to love their masks. But again, as soon as it's no longer compulsory, their masks will vanish, and we'll see if what happens in Brisbane. It seems likely. It will grind to a halt in a few days, like it did in New Zealand. We had a few numbers, and then they all dried up after a few days. So, and you've had similar cases repeat in Victoria time and time again. So certainly listen to Fauci, wear 6 feet of masks, and as Colin says, a plastic bag over your head too, just to be sure, a reusable one. And then you'll be fine. No worries at all.
Now, an update on the developing story on last week's Trad Tasman Talk. A
different kind of viral infection, a different kind of pandemic.
yes. Degeneracy in Australia's Parliament House after Peter Van Onselen on the project, revealed through a whistleblower, Tom, that a group of male staffers had filmed themselves masturbating on MP's desk and shared them around, shared them with each other on a Facebook Messenger group, which is it's disgusting and degenerate. Now, I think, I was thinking at the time, I'm not sure about you, straight men, they don't really film videos of themselves masturbating and send them to other straight guys.
No, well, this is not something I've ever heard of before, so it certainly seems a little bit queer, perhaps, a bit of a strange occurrence, certainly.
Well, it was a queer, you would say, grouping of staffers who were doing this, and they were doing it as a bizarre sort of gay rights statement, because they were doing it on the desks of MPs who were against same-sex marriage. And this was revealed by, on Twitter, a user called Difficult Nerd, whose name is James Newbury, who's been on Wilms Front previously, not to talk about that, but the COVID Safe app that was mid last year. And Peter Credlin, former chief of staff to Tony Abbott, she has said she knows of historical gay orgies occurring in Parliament House, and a former coalition minister whose staff signed in a male prostitute to have sex with in Parliament House.
So most of this parliamentary degeneracy is just heterophobic hate crimes. Is that sort of what we're getting at now?
Well, we know because much was made of it. A female MP's desk being masturbated on, and that has turned out to be Nola Marino, who's a West Australian Liberal MP who was opposed to same-sex marriage. Now, Chip Legrand in the Age on Saturday outed Tom the whistleblower, who has a Twitter handle called Blowing Tom. This is the Blowing Tom on the right, Gavin Cuddy, who is not a gay Liberal staffer. He's a retail worker in Canberra who was invited in, or who received these images and videos from the gay Liberal staffer who was sacked, Nathan Wynne. And the motivations for Gavin Cuddy, becoming Blowing Tom, was that he didn't like the fact that his local Liberal Senator, Zed Seselja, was against same-sex marriage, and so basically wanted to hurt the Liberal Party. And Difficult Nerd said that Nathan Wynne's mistake was inviting a lefty gay into their, gay Liberal circle, where I haven't got the screenshots with me, but Michael Tice, another gay Liberal, said, how about just not jizz on MPs' desks? You're having trouble responding.
I'm slightly. I don't have anything to say to this. Yeah. No, I've said everything I said I was going to say on this last week, I think. So, yeah. But certainly, yeah.
Well, on Wednesday we had we're back to heterosexual parliamentary sexual misconduct. New South Wales Nationals MP Michael Johnsen. I can't remember who the MP was who raised an unnamed state MP who was accused of raping a sex worker. Apparently, he had paid her for oral intercourse, but didn't agree to penetration. He penetrated her anyway, which in the sex industry, if you engage with a sex worker in a way that you haven't paid for or they haven't agreed, it's rape. He later outed himself, this New South Wales National MP, Michael Johnsen. So he went to the crossbench after he outed himself. Now it's been revealed that, there are reports that he offered a sex worker $1,000 for sex in Parliament House, and his former leader, Deputy Premier and National State Leader John Barilaro has called for his immediate resignation, and rightly so. That's just, disgusting, and so he should go.
Yes, absolutely. It's we haven't had any quite stories like this in at least in New Zealand recently, but we certainly have had politicians caught up in this. But it's even if your politicians are hiring prostitutes, regardless of whether they're raping them or not, they should go. Certainly.
So we're not done yet, though, on the parliamentary.
It gets worse. It gets worse.
Yes. So 9 News in Brisbane revealed the online trolling activities of federal Liberal MP for Bowman, Andrew Laming. They got the testimony of two women in his electorate that said that he trolled them online. One he accused of misappropriating charity funds. The other, who was a teacher, he apparently rang up her school to ask what her timetable was and took photos of her from behind the bushes. Then on Saturday night, 9 News revealed that he'd taken when he was visiting a local business, he had taken a photo of one of the female employees, or she was putting drinks into the fridge and had bent over with her underwear showing. He took a photo of that and was asked to delete it by one of her male colleagues, and he did. And his response recently, when he was asked, "Hey, remember that time you took that photo, you perv?" His response was, I didn't think it was rude. I thought it was funny, but you made it awkward." So the next day, he announced that he wasn't recontesting the next election and was going to empathy training. I should also mention that he's a medical doctor and he is trained in gynecology, of all things. So on Monday, he went on ABC Radio to tell his side of the story. He said he told the ABC, "Well, he apologized for any his comments it's caused. They need to be looked at in context. If you made someone feel terrible, arrested, abused, that is utterly unacceptable. But the next step is to say, what did the MP say and what was it in response to?" So I'm absolutely apologizing for the feelings, but ultimately, again, when you put sentences to me without looking what was written to me in the first place, you need to read and exchange fully understand. Repeated references to me as a cretin, blocking me from one woman's own not profit page, and then defaming me. And then he goes further down here to talk about the photo. Where can I find that here? He said that the photo that he took I can't find the exact quote here, that he claims he took it, like he didn't do it close up. It was of the whole area, and it was more just a photo just to show like what a tremendous job she was doing putting all those drinks in a tiny fridge. That's his version of events. Now, we've actually had a staffer of Andrew Lemmings as a guest on Wilms Front last year, Barclay McGain, who who's been in the media for his own alleged controversies because he filmed a young LNP schoolies video where he laughed at his LNP mate Jake Scott saying, we should celebrate our culture, not a culture that couldn't invent the bloody wheel, referring to Aboriginal culture. So that was he was. It was claimed that he was sacked from Andrew Lemmings' office, Barclay McGain, in May last year, but Andrew Lemmings said he was never really sacked, just sidelined, and he's back working for him now. But I think having Barclay on his staff now is the least of Andrew Lemmings' problems now.
Certainly sounds like it. And all up, looks like you've got yourself a very nice Sodom and Gomorrah situation over there in Australia. The only thing you're really missing is the fire and brimstone, which
we had
might be due any time.
We had the flash flooding in New South Wales last week, which led to a spider plague because of the flooding. So maybe that is due to the.
Well, we will ratchet it up. It's certainly. And this is actually, this is the, I remember probably basically last year we were talking perhaps postulating the idea that maybe the plague, the Wuhan flu, was a punishment, well-deserved punishment. And sounds like we need something a lot worse to clean up the mess that we have, because, That's what's going to happen. We're well beyond that now. Well beyond this being reversed anytime soon. So it's certainly happening where the outward public culture has degenerated to an extreme level, and it goes from everywhere. Media and the songs that top the charts and everything from Nike. Obviously, a lot of what happens in America becomes everything has to be more degenerate to a higher level to get the same result. And so you've got Nike, the demon devil 666 shoes with blood on it, and you have these music videos I'm not going to describe videos, but I've heard them described, and absolutely. So in that entertainment level, in the entertainment field, it gets worse. In the politics field, it gets worse. Everything gets worse, and at some point, it's all going to come burning down, and there will be a day of judgment. There will be a day of reckoning.
Now I put on the screen there a comment from Cresho, who said Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews, which brings me to Scott Morrison's attempted reset cabinet reshuffle after the last month of sexual misconduct scandals. So the Attorney General Christian Porter, who is suing the ABC for defamation over their story, that said that there was an unnamed cabinet minister who was accused of historical rape that he denies, because of the conflict of interest of him being the first law officer in the land while taking legal action, like using the law system in a private capacity. He's been moved sideways to industry, science and innovation, which used to be Karen Andrews' portfolio. Now, Karen Andrews was a Liberal MP who, to put it bluntly, went on a feminist rant when the parliamentary degeneracy wanking was exposed, to say that she was sick of all this. So Scott Morrison has decided to promote her for her feminist rant to Home Affairs, which was Peter Dutton's portfolio. He's going to defense because Linda Reynolds, she is also being moved sideways because she was the minister, well, it was her office where her staffer Brittany Higgins was allegedly raped by another staffer, and she had to pay her own defamation settlement for referring to Brittany Higgins in her own office as a lying cow. So she's been moved to government services, and she replaces Stuart Robert. The good thing about Linda Reynolds being in that portfolio now, she can't do as bad a job as Stuart Robert in that portfolio, who's basically only in the cabinet because he's a church buddy of Scott Morrison. Stuart Robert was the minister responsible for the robo-debt scandal, claimed that the government, the MyGov website had been hacked when it got a surge in traffic because people got laid off during the coronavirus restrictions came in. Even though he was pursuing people for over welfare, alleged over welfare overpayments that it turns out were non-existent. He racked up his own expenses through an internet connection, $37,000, but it was okay for him to repay at no questions asked. He didn't get robo-debt onto him himself. He's been moved to employment, skills, family and small business, which was Michaela Cash's portfolio. She's been moved to the Attorney General and Minister for Industrial Relations. So there's the first female Attorney General now, even though Michaela Cash has had her own various scandals over the years. And just for good measure, Melissa Price, who'd previously been dumped from Cabinet for a poor performance in Environment Minister, she's been promoted to Cabinet as Defence Industry Minister. And Maurice Payne, the Foreign Minister, is still staying Minister for Women. We also have now a women's security minister, personal financial security minister, and a women's safety minister as well.
So the chart that you showed of the reshuffle several months ago has gotten a little bit bigger with more useless names and titles attached to it.
Yeah, more women, purely
more women.
mainly promoted because of their gender, not because of merit.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure this is going to cause some kind of magical, drastic improvement to what's going on over there, which I think segues nicely into New Zealand's slow burn, as it feels like the country is ever so slowly falling apart. We actually had what could almost be a first, which is that there are internal papers from Cabinet, or at least internal communications from Cabinet being leaked out to the media. So Stuff has reported that they received an email from the Prime Minister's press secretary, Andrew Campbell, by accident. Was sent as a accident from the staff.
It can happen. Once Scott Morrison's office accidentally emailed the day's talking points to the media.
Yeah, and well, this is actually where this is almost where this is going. So this is apparently a regular communication email based on covering topics that the Prime Minister might face in the press conferences. And inside the email down there, we see there are 6 topics they're looking for. And one of them is trying to get a table for increases year on year, for rent increases year on year since they've been government, compared to increases in wages and house prices. That I believe that table was actually dug up by the ACT Party instead. I saw it's not in this article that you've got open there, but rents have indeed been going up quite a decent amount in the Labour Party. Oh, sorry, no, it's not that one. That's the next story. But basically, one of these talking points had to do with trying to say, the Labour Party's not increasing rents. The Labour Party's not to blame for increasing rents, because that is the narrative that landlords have been able to generate over the past week, to say, the Labour Party's tax changes are going to mean that landlords are going to put the rents up. But in reality, all that Labour has been doing with their policies the last 3.5 years have been to see rents increase, I believe, by up to $100, $160 a week. I'm going off memory from the chart here, since I couldn't dig it up before the show. But it was, it's certainly not looking good for where this is heading. And it basically is a face-off between landlords and the Labour Party to see who blinks first. But since the government is unwilling to deal with both supply and demand issues, because what they had been blaming for on demand issues on housing and rent had, for instance, been overseas buyers. We'd obviously talked a lot about immigration and supply side issues, such as being able to build more houses, which they're not tackling at all. And obviously, the biggest demand increase in demand over the past year has been cheap money. Basically, historic low interest rates, massive amounts of quantitative easing, huge amounts of money printing that just gets poured into the housing market, because that's the best place to put it. No discussion on that. So this chatter about whether the train is going to slow down, it may slow a little bit, but it's all going up. And there's no real, the bad hits keep coming. And she's basically sending the Finance Minister, Grant Robertson, to go front up these issues, hoping that he takes all the hits, and then Jacinda can eventually come back when she's got some more good press that she could get, like, who knows, another lockdown or something, wherever we go. And obviously wages are stagnant. Same thing. They wanted this chart. The chart didn't materialize because the chart looks horrible. They definitely did not bring that up. It's clearly they're worried. They're starting to get a little bit worried, and this is a sign of things to come. You can switch to that other article that you had open in a minute, unless you've got something to add. Obviously, another problem that they've got here is they've got plans to, and this is a usual scheme, right? They had a scheme to build a huge amount of houses. They built, I think, 200 houses. Kiwi
they didn't build back better.
They did not build back better. They were going to build 10,000 houses. They built 200 houses. They were going to create more jobs. This was a jobs program for Māori. So they were going to get Māori trades and training fund, and it was a grant, and they basically spent $500 million on consultants and limos, and probably a whole bunch of degenerate things too that will never get leaked. And they managed to create 4 new jobs. So this is your government at work, creating jobs. And
well,
and there's nothing good here. So if anybody is hoping there was good news for New Zealand, not at the moment. Obviously, other things have been swept in the background too. The Pike River recovery. So it was a mining accident that resulted in a number of deaths many years ago now. The Labour Party had promised they were going to go back into the mines, recover bodies, etc. They're basically finally officially burying anything that they're going to do now. So you've got a bit of bad press coming up for them from the families of these miners who are feeling used, which I'm surprised it took them this long to figure out that they were being used by the Labour Party, but apparently they have finally cottoned on. And we're also seeing bad news on the crime front. We've got crime up even in prisons. The number of I'll just double check this. Yeah, so they've got a number of violence in prisons is up, but prisoner numbers are down. So they've reduced the number of criminals in prison, but they've increased the amount of violence that they're perpetrating in prison. The number of staffers assaulted has increased to 889. in the last financial year, almost quadrupling from the preceding 12 months. So we had a story a few months ago about a prison burning down. That's just the tip of the iceberg. The prison minister, Kelvin Davis, is under a little bit of pressure too, but again, I don't see any of them going anywhere. Jacinda doesn't fire ministers. The media doesn't really bother to go after them. They'll run some obligatory stories and then they'll move on to the next shiny object. But the gist of it is that things are getting worse. Overall, assaults are up to Bay of Plenty, I think, is the hot spot. They've had the largest increase in violent crime over the past last 2 years here, and yeah, it's all getting worse, which is obviously to be predicted. But it's just a shame that we can basically be guaranteed that nothing is going to improve over the next term of the Labour government. So, and whether any other government would do better, who knows? But certainly, the status quo that we have now is more of this for the next few years.
Well, in Australia, on going to economic matters, we had the JobKeeper business and wage subsidy in place for the pandemic end. That was on Sunday, and I say good riddance to it, because it was a really poorly designed program, because businesses and employees got it who didn't need it, and businesses and employees who really needed it didn't get it. It was a really weird and perverse test. So I'm glad that it's ended now. Josh Frydenberger said the economy's got to stand on its own 2 feet now. It also means that the federal government is not going to be writing the checks for state government snap lockdowns. So Queensland Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk, whose tourism industry has already been smashed, and well, in the lead up to Easter, this is just so bad. So she'll have to pay for it herself. Now, despite the crappy design, perverse design of this JobKeeper program, federal Labor still wanted it to continue, because they've never seen a welfare program, no matter how badly designed, that they didn't like.
Yeah. And I've just been reminded by a comment about back to the prison story, for instance. The way that the justice system operates and the prisons operate is obviously horrendous too, which is why we're seeing these crimes go up. But in prisons, it's referred to as they can't refer to prisoners. They can't call these people criminals. They have to be nice to them and say, they're taking care of these people. They can't call people pedophiles. It has to be things like, offending against children and all of the stuff that goes on in the entire justice system, in the entire prison system. The prison minister is focused on getting, or the Minister for Corrections, as it's called, is focused on getting more of these people out onto the streets as quickly as possible. It's obviously Australia is deporting people back to New Zealand too, it's certainly just going to get uglier out there. There's no good news there.
Well, we've got time. For those of you who want to ask a question or send through a super chat, now's your chance. But we've got time for a cancel culture update. And I'm not sure if I mentioned on this show that Woolworths supermarkets, they renamed their Boomerang chicken wings to V-wings based on one complaint. So that was a new
Boomerang is racist.
Precedent set in cancel culture. So I think people were rightly alarmed when a petition to rename the Golden Gay Time, which had 800 signatures, was publicized. It was launched by a man who went by the name of Brian Mack, who wants to eliminate the word gay from the popular ice cream product because as part of the LGBTIQ community, I believe my sexual identity is owned by me. So apparently this, even though Golden Gay Time was launched in 1950 time when the term gay meant happy, so it was called Gay Time to have a happy time. Well, this was written on The Unshackled by Marcus Fu, who's a young gay conservative who isn't bothered by that. In fact, a lot of gays like the fact that it's called Golden Gay Time because it gives them a bit of a giggle. Sounds like most of the Golden Gay Times have been going on in the federal parliament lately. But Streets Ice Creams, they've said they have no plans to change the name of Golden Gay Time.
It's just it's certainly I believe a strategy that was picked up by a few conservatives, sort of more on the comedic side, who would write to companies to complain, trying to get things cancelled. This almost seems like that kind of prank, whereas could be. In this case, it didn't work, but it would have been much funnier if it had worked. Actually, I'm say this almost every week now, but please, we need to cancel everything. So try harder next time. We need to cancel it all.
Now, because we're supposedly in a crisis in the treatment of women in Australia, some college in Warrnambool in regional Victoria thought it'd be a great idea to make all the boys apologise to the female students on behalf of their gender. Now, the school, Bower College, has now apologised for making the boys apologise after outrage from parents, national and international outrage.
And I remember reading the apology, and the apology was something like, "Oh, we believe this was a good idea, but just we're sorry we did it the wrong way." Something like the sort of the apology was absolutely ridiculous in terms of these people who run these schools are hardened. Well, I say criminal at this point. Certainly should be criminal, and a good reminder that if you love your children, keep them far, far, far away from these government schools, because
there was
that's a sign of things to come.
I'm not sure if it was. I believe it was maybe a private school. I'll look it up now.
Keep them away from those private schools too. Then
let me just check that. Let me just, because there are public schools that are called colleges now. So let me just have a look.
Certainly worth checking. But a good reminder as parents, you should make sure that wherever your children are, if they're homeschooled or that if they're at a Christian school, that
it is a government school.
Something that values. So make sure that whatever education your children are receiving is something where you're very, very heavily involved, and the purpose of that education is focused around what you want for your children, and not obviously what these propaganda, these people are just evil, demonic, as we've been calling them on the show recently. Certainly what they want to do to these children is absolutely evil.
Now, you and I would both be familiar with feminists. Their constant gripe is the so-called gender pay gap, that women earn 77 cents in the dollar to men. Right. And, with a new study today, it might be proclaimed that the reason that the gender pay gap exists is because women earning more than men leads to a higher risk of domestic violence by 35%. So this was done research by the Tax and Transfer Policy Institute, and you can see that's quite the stock image photo that they've used. Yes,
good photo. Yeah. So there we go. Well, congratulations, Tim, on finding the cause of the gender wage gap. We now know that it's actually there for a very, very good reason. Otherwise, you may end up with another epidemic in Australia. This time, you'll have mass hospitalizations of women if they earned more money. So certainly,
that's
certainly good to have averted this crisis. And
that's why you don't let your wife Amy
that's right,
work.
That's right.
Make
she
sure
stay at home. Just
make sure that there's a hot meal for you when you get home every night.
Yes, thank you, Amy. I just saw she was in the chat earlier there, so now she knows why it's so important that she doesn't,
We actually probably shouldn't joke about it, because some lefty might call family violence line and say we've got a concern at the Boer house.
Public service announcement. We have these billboards around town. Like we used to have one just down the road. It would be like domestic violence is not okay in Manukau. So they'd have this per region. I remember driving down that country a few months ago, and they had it in a different region with domestic violence is not okay in whatever town. And I always wondered why would you limit such a message to like a local area, and then it makes it sound a little bit like, domestic violence is not okay here, but it might be okay somewhere else.
Yes.
Terrible messaging. If you're listening to this and you're on the board, you're responsible for those government advertisements. Do consider just slightly tweaking them so they don't sound like they're regionally limited. Exactly. Good. Thank you for all the messages, everybody. We are on finishing time now, so we'll probably wrap up the rest of the show. And I believe that we are going to skip next week. It is Easter next week.
Yes,
long weekend for everybody. So we may skip Tuesday.
Jared Seaby, my co-host of Brawler and the Brain, for enticing me to an Easter break, because he and his family they have a festive Easter, so there's going to be no Brawler and the Brain next Sunday. So there's going to be no Trad Tasman Talk next Tuesday, and I'm also going to take tomorrow night off Wilms front. So I will next return on Wilms front the following Wednesday, which, if I get my dates right, because I mixed up my dates before, which will be Thursday, the 7th of April. At 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time on YouTube and D Live. And yes, we shall see what the news is like then.
Hopefully we get something a bit more positive and a little bit more wholesome in the next 2 weeks. I try to keep my eye out for nice things happening, but clearly I should try and do a little bit of a better job. Maybe I should rope in some people to help me get the Telegram chat to send me positive, wholesome stories from either New Zealand or Australia. Maybe I'll put that challenge out to the Telegram chat. And a good reminder to anybody watching this show who's not in Telegram, you can find the channel Telegram. Look for Dieuwe de Boer, and the chat is linked in there, pinned in the pinned comment. And until then, that's the best place to find me. And we'll see you next week.
No, the week after. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
It's nearly 20 past 10 here in New Zealand, so I'm about ready to go to bed, as you can tell.
Yeah. Good night, everybody. Enjoy your Easter break, and we'll all be back after the festive season. So enjoy the chocolate, and for the Christians, enjoy your remembrance.
Good night, everyone. Stay free and stay safe.
Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Trad Tasman Talk. To keep up with the latest real news and analysis from the Tasman nations, visit theunshackles.net and rightminds.nz.